Hello everyone, this is Kirya Does Things. I'm Kirya and today we're going to talk about the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. For anyone new, this is a series where I rate the drivers out of 10 based on their individual performance and trying to take the machinery out of the equation. First off, I want to talk about Oli Berman a little bit because he's not on here. I haven't given him a grade. Because he's probably not going to race again this season, and I can't really rate him or grade him with any logic, the same logic that I apply to the other drivers. He had obviously an amazing debut. He did very well considering the circumstances. He barely had any time in the car. And then he got so close to Q3 in qualifying, and then had a very strong race, getting to P7, finishing ahead of Norris and Hamilton. Generally speaking, he even did some good overtakes. Generally speaking, he had a very strong race, and we will probably hear about him a lot in the future, maybe for a Haas seat for 2025. Or maybe for something else, I'm not sure. But because I'm watching F2, I really want to see how he will do and develop this season. So no grade for Berman, but he obviously did very well. Our first actual driver for the 2024 season that he's going to race for the whole season, is Alex Albon, who had a very strong race considering the fact that Magnussen crashed into him at some point. It wasn't a major crash, but still they had damage and he lost momentum. He qualified a very respectable P12 and ended up finishing P11 in the end. Almost points, and probably would have been points if not for that Haas strategy, let's call it. We will talk about it a lot more later when the drivers come up. But he had a very solid drive, and he obviously destroyed yet again Logan Sargent, so he will get a 7 out of 10 from me. Our second driver is Fernando Alonso, who had a very strong weekend with a great qualifying yet again. He had a good qualifying in Bahrain, but not a very good race. This time around he had a great qualifying, and his race pace was better. Aston Martin's race pace seemed better. So he managed to beat both Mercedes, one McLaren, and obviously one Ferrari, the Ferrari of Berman. I think it was a really good drive, and he obviously destroyed Stroll in every possible way to compare them in every metric. I think it was pretty good. I gave him an 8 out of 10. Next one, Valtteri Bottas. I don't understand what is happening with Sauber, generally speaking. They are doing crazy strategies, and they are doing they are crashing, they are having crazy pit stops, second race in a row that they have a very bad pit stop. A race ending pit stop. It's not like it's bad, it is like 7 seconds, it's like 30 or 50 seconds, it's crazy. They have to sort this out because they can't fight with the midfield with these pit stops, and generally with this performance as a team. Now Valtteri qualified 16th. Okay, fair enough, I guess. And the race, he was pretty much nowhere. He was last out of after the two crashes, after the DNFs. Sorry, the DNF of Gasly, and then the crash that was a DNF for Stroll. He was running last, and then at some point the team was like, "Well, okay, let's put him on a two-stop." He went to the soft tires, and obviously nothing good happened, and he finished 17th, which was almost last. The only person that he beat in the race was his teammate Joe, who had the crazy long pit stop. And I can't even, like, they both did they didn't do well. The team didn't do well. I can't really grade him like greater than a 4. I think a 4 is okay for Bottas. Next we have Pierre. Pierre is completely ungradable. I can only grade his qualifying. He qualified where the Alpine is. Second race in a row that he gets out qualified by Ocon, but both times they were very, 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 very close. So it's not like he's getting destroyed. He qualified 18th. He out qualified one person because Joe was 20th. He didn't take part in quali. So I gave him a 5 out of 10. I was considering a 4, but we can't know. We didn't see him in the race because of the gearbox problem on lap 1. So Pierre gets a 5 out of 10. Next we have Lewis Hamilton. I'm kind of disappointed. He hasn't started the season very well. Not a good quali again. P8. Again out qualified by his teammate, and then in the race, mainly because of the strategy, but he didn't really shine in any way. I was considering a 4 as well for Lewis, but he defended very, very well against Piastri for a lot of laps, even though Piastri was on fresh tires, which didn't really help in any way his race, but still it was good defending, so I think it's fair enough to not give him lower than 5. But yeah, he was in the alternative bad strategy in the end, him and Norris, so he didn't really have a great chance to do anything better than this. So it's a 5 out of 10. Next up we have Nico Hülkenberg. Both the Haas drivers are kind of tricky to grade. It's for a different reason. Now Hülkenberg went on to Q2, and then he had an engine problems or something, and he couldn't take part in Q2. So he had to start 15th. And after that, in the race, he was the only one that went on the alternative strategy, which was not to pit on the safety car, and he actually made it work. However, I'm not really sure how much of it is Hülkenberg being amazing and how much is the shenanigans that happened with Magnussen and the rest of the field that helped him to get a point. Haas had a decent race pace. That was kind of obvious that they had a good pace. It seems like they are around the 6th or the 7th fastest team right now, which is pretty impressive considering what we thought would be the case from testing. So they seem to be decent enough. Hülkenberg, I'm pretty sure he could have been around the Q3 or in Q3 if he had the chance, and then in the race he actually got the first point, even though a lot of things happened behind to help him do that. I still think it's a very strong drive, and I think we should reward him with an 8 out of 10, and right now has the only point other than the top 5 teams. So it's an 8 for Hülkenberg. Next we have Charles Leclerc, who had a pretty amazing Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Second in quali. Obviously he wasn't close enough with Max. He wasn't close to Paul at all. It was like 3.5 tenths. But still, he had qualified everyone else, every human on the grid, other than Verstappen. So he did the maximum there. In the race, obviously, the Ferrari can't follow the Red Bull. Perez got past very easily, and then they had a pretty big gap, around 10 seconds, I think, in the end. But because Perez had the 5-second penalty, it was around 5 or 6, I'm not sure. But Red Bull has a greater race pace than the Ferrari, obviously. So Leclerc did the best he could, and he even got the fastest lap at the last lap. So he absolutely got like the most he could get. If by some miracle he would beat Perez, I would give him a 10. But okay, I can't give him a 10. Even though I think he did the absolute maximum he could. Because we keep the 10s, I guess, for special occasions. So I gave him a 9, but it's pretty amazing anyway. As you can see from my previous ratings and these ratings, I don't give high grades very easily. Because I try to keep a balance around 5, and same thing, I don't give very low grades extremely easily. So I think it's a better way to try to get it balanced around the 5 out of 10 mark, which is the average, obviously. So I gave him a 9. After that, we have Kevin Magnussen, who was the star of the race, the star of the show, but not exactly for a good reason. Part of it was good, a lot of it was bad. He qualified 13th, he finished 12th. Now, if someone looks at this, he might think Magnussen had a very boring race. Not at all. He had the craziest race. So, first of all, he was in the midfield fight, and he crashed a little bit on Albon, which meant he got a 10-second penalty. After that, he was fighting Yuki, and Magnussen cut the corner to keep the place. He got another 10-second penalty for that. Now, the thing is, even at the first 10-second penalty, or even maybe before that, he wasn't going to get any points. So what happened was that Haas told him to try to stay ahead of all the pack in order to make Hülkenberg's strategy work, right? Which makes sense as a team strategy. It's not very sportsmanlike, I think, but I get why they did it. But it's not very cool, I think, because Magnussen, especially for the second one, because the first one, okay, he crashed a little bit on Albon. Obviously, it wasn't on purpose. He tried to defend and had a little bit of contact with Albon. That's fair enough. He got 10 seconds. Okay, that's okay. The second one, though, they knew that it was a mistake. He could just back out and let Tsunoda by, because that was the correct thing to do in order to not get a penalty. The thing with penalties in life, in general, now, okay, I'm getting like completely out of the theme of the video, but however, it's an interesting conversation, I think. The thing with any fines, penalties in life is that it's worth for you to do it if you don't care enough about the penalty, if you can get more advantage than disadvantage. Okay, so it's an issue with humans that exists, like I'm pretty sure, like forever. If, for example, people that have a lot of money, when there is a fine, they don't care. It will not make their day any worse. However, if they don't do what they're going to do, whatever it is, they will not benefit. So obviously they will do the thing, the illegal thing, and just pay the fine. They don't care because they have a lot of money. Okay, so it's kind of the same principle here. Him getting penalties in the race does not matter at all. Like, it matters 0%. So, but the benefit is that Haas gets a point with the strategy with Hülkenberg because Magnussen holds up everyone else behind. So what is stopping them to do this? Nothing. So obviously they will do it. I understand why they will do it. It's kind of like game theory. I don't know if you are familiar with game theory, but you know they're obviously going to do it. Okay, so I understand why they did it. I don't know what the solution is because it's not very cool, and it's not like Magnussen like crashed and tried to hurt others or I don't know everyone else behind. So that's why he gets a 5. He gets a 5 because in most of the race, in a big part of the race, he defended brilliantly. Once on Tsunoda, I'm pretty sure, and generally speaking, he stayed there and made everyone go slow behind him, and he did very well, the defending part. But the rest of it was not very good. So I gave him a 5 out of 10 to get back to the ratings and stuff. Now, one more thing that is quite funny is that he had 20 seconds of penalties, right? And he finished barely ahead of like 5 cars, 6 cars. And obviously we thought that he was going to finish behind them because of the penalties. But that's not what happened. And that's not what happened because he was not lapped. The others behind him were all lapped by Verstappen. He managed to finish in front of Verstappen, which meant he was not lapped, which meant that even if you add the 20 seconds of penalties on his race time, it doesn't say +1 lap, which means that he finishes ahead of the rest of the pack. So the penalties didn't even matter at the end. Like, if I know this is a very specific situation, but if Hülkenberg didn't exist and Magnussen was doing all this for himself to get a point, he would get a point. If he was 10th, he would finish 10th, even though he had the 20 seconds penalties, and even though some people finished like 2 seconds behind him, which I think it's crazy. These are the rules. I get it, but it's pretty crazy to think about. He could do a lot of illegal things just to stay ahead. He would get the penalties, and he himself would benefit, not even the team. This time around, it just so happens that Hülkenberg and the team get the benefit. But there could be a scenario where Magnussen himself would get a point if he just blocked and crashed like two people. Get a lot of penalties, doesn't matter. They're not more than a lap. If the others are a lap behind, it doesn't matter how many penalties you have. Anyway, rant is over. Magnussen gets a 5 out of 10 because of his good defending mainly, that saves it. But I don't know what the solution is, but I would like to see some sort of solution in place. I don't think, however, that they think it's a problem. So I don't think we will see anything regarding this. Let's go to the next driver. Next up, we have Lando. Lando Norris had a not very good race. He jumped the start, but he didn't. I'm not sure what was that. They said the sensor wasn't on, but we saw him jump the start. You have to be objective, so if there is a sensor, you have to say if the sensor activates, it's a penalty. If it doesn't activate, it's not a penalty, I guess, but he did jump the start. Anyway, whatever. So first we had that. He got outqualified by Piastri. In the race, McLaren did the same thing with Hamilton that Mercedes did. Didn't do the correct strategy. Left him to stay out, not go in with the others with the safety car, which wasn't the correct thing. And then in the end, he couldn't catch up to Berman. So he didn't do anything impressive. He existed, he got beaten by his teammate, he gets a 5 from me, similar to Hamilton, as I said before. Next we have Esteban Ocon, who had a pretty good race. Alpine seems quite bad right now. He qualified 17th, finished in 13th in the end. If you think about what I said with Magnussen and his penalties, he would have been 12th. So he had a clean race, he was stuck around the midfield. He got some overtakes done, and he managed to get to P13. It's not crazy, maybe 7 is a little bit too good for him, maybe a 6. But I don't know, I gave him a 7 because Alpine seemed to be very bad in both Bahrain and in the Saudi qualifying. So I guess I think he did pretty well considering where Alpine is. So I gave him a 7. Nothing special about his race, nothing bad obviously. Next we have Checo Perez, who qualified 3rd, got beaten by Leclerc, barely, I think it was very close, and then easily beat him in the race to finish 2nd for the 2nd race in a row. Again, the Red Bull seems way better in race pace than everyone else, and nobody can be even close. So 2nd is kind of the bare minimum, but he was closer to Max compared to Bahrain, so I gave him more points for this. So he gets a 7 out of 10. Maybe if he got the fastest lap or he finished around, I don't know, like 3 or 4 seconds behind Verstappen, he would get an 8. Also, I think he had a 5-second penalty from an unsafe release, and I think they said that it was his fault, that the light was not on for him to go out, but he did. So the penalty was his fault. So I think a 7 is fair enough. He did decent enough, but nothing super duper amazing. Next we have Piastri, who had a very good race, qualified 5th. In the race he finished 4th. I gave him a 7. I was thinking a 7 or an 8, but I didn't give him an 8 because he was stuck behind Lewis for a very long time. Obviously it wouldn't really change anything. It's not like he could get Leclerc for P3, but still that's not the point. The point is that he couldn't overtake for a very long time, and if it was a race that mattered, it would hurt him obviously. So I gave him a 7. It's still a pretty good race, a pretty good job, but nothing spectacular. It's not a podium. He wasn't close to it, and he got stuck behind a slower car. So I gave him a 7. He did beat, of course, Norris in both sessions, which is very good for Piastri. And I have a soft spot for McLaren and Piastri. He seems like a great guy, and I support him in a way. So I think he did well, a 7 out of 10. Next we have Danny Rick. Danny Rick has started the season absolutely terribly. He's not, like, he can't do anything good. Tsunoda qualified 9th. We will see him later. Ricciardo was 14th again. He's not quick enough right now. He's just not. Like, if he... Okay, it is just 2 races. But if he continues like this, honestly, I don't see a good reason why not put Lawson like at the summer break for the rest of the season. He was hyped, Ricciardo, again, like he will come back and go back to Red Bull. Like, he didn't show anything amazing last season. He didn't. He was beaten by Tsunoda. He was close to Tsunoda, but beaten by Tsunoda last season. And now he's getting beaten like really easily. And okay, maybe the qualifying 14th, race 16th, the 2 out of 10 is kinda harsh, but it's not, because he spun. like around lap 40, 45, I don't remember. He spun on his own. He's just slow right now. I don't know. Like I don't know if he has lost the thing that made him very good, like in 2018 and 19. It's been 5-6 years. Maybe he has lost something. I don't know. He's not good enough right now. He's just not good enough. I'm not saying he seems like he doesn't belong in F1, like totally. He's like he doesn't seem like I don't know, like a Mazepin or something. No, okay, not at all. But it's still very disappointing. He doesn't seem. He's not. He's 34. How old is he? 35. I don't know. Like, what is the reason for Red Bull to keep him there? It's marketing mainly. So I really like him. He seems like a good dude, a fun guy. But that's not the point, right? See, he's not fast enough right now, and he spun, so he gets a 2 out of 10. Next we have George Russell, who had a pretty solid race, from 7th in quali to 6th in the race. The Mercedes seemed a little bit slower than the McLaren, and even slower than the Aston maybe. The Mercedes seemed like the 5th fastest car, the 4th, 5th fastest car. So considering that, 6th is a pretty good result. He had qualified his teammate again, he outraced him again, even though he had the better strategy. So he gets a solid 7 out of 10, nothing super amazing, nothing... it's pretty good, pretty solid. 7 out of 10 for George. Logan Sargent, he's also not good enough. He's the other guy that I think it's 2 or 3 drivers that they're not bad drivers, they're not like completely out of place. Maybe Sargent is the only one that is a little bit out of place in F1. He's not doing well. I don't think he's going to do well unless we give him like 10 seasons or something. He's not improving. I'm sorry, but it's true. He can't qualify for some reason. He always has a problem, a mistake or something, and Albon completely destroys him. Like Albon was P12, he's 19th again. No reason for him. Williams is a Q2 car, or close to Q2 at least. Maybe get a 16th, 15th. I don't know, something like that. Not like he constantly qualifies P20, P19. The only reason he was 19th and not 20th was because one driver didn't take part. So he did terribly again in qualifying. In the race he didn't do that terribly. He was okay, he was there. He is not maximizing the performance of the car, obviously. That's why I gave him a 3 and not lower, because he at least had an okay race. But if you start 19th, like, it's pretty much over unless, like, I don't know, 10 cars crash in front of you. So your race is kinda over at that point. You can't fight for points when you are 19th. So I gave him a 3 out of 10. I want to say he has to do better, but I'm sorry, I don't think he will do better. He's not doing good enough, and I expect him to leave the sport at the end of the season. Next, Lance Stroll. I'm pretty sure, let's see a little bit. It was okay, I thought it was Ricciardo, then Sargent, and then Stroll, which would be 3 drivers in a row that didn't do well. Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll. Okay, he qualified 10th, 6 positions behind Alonso again, barely made it to Q3, which I don't know. Should we celebrate? Should we say, yes, Stroll made it into Q3, that's a big success? Like, it's not. The car should be in Q3, and as Alonso has shown in qualifying, they can even get ahead of McLaren's and Mercedes cars. He got into Q3, which was the bare minimum. Okay, hooray, yes. Big success. And also he got into Q3 because Berman No, actually, he wasn't P10 in Q2, so that's not true. Okay, whatever. Point is that he was 10th in qualifying, so already he's not doing well. And then he goes and crashes on like lap 5. Like, for no reason. Okay, Saudi Arabia, Jeddah circuit is very hard, I understand that. So obviously, Lance Stroll is a very talented race driver. Okay, he has a podium in Formula One. He has a pole position. Like, that's nobody does that in life. It's like 100 people in the history of the sport or whatever. It's not like he's terrible, obviously. But considering like we compare him to the other drivers, we compare him to the field. That's the whole point, right? How well he did comparing to the others that are on the same boat, let's say. So in that respect, he did terribly. His qualifying is bad. He just crashed, and that was that. Alonso finished 5th. Like, Aston Martin should get from Stroll at least 8th or 7th in this race. Maybe even 6th. I don't know. Nobody said beat Fernando Alonso. Like, we don't expect that. But be close. It's the same thing that we said about Perez the whole last season and other seasons before, but mainly last season. Like, we don't expect you to beat the best, like Verstappen and Alonso is, but try to be close and just try to do your job. That's it. Just get some points. This is not acceptable by, like, Aston Martin can't accept it. The thing is, he's unfortunately the son of the owner, so yeah, I don't think he deserves a good seat. Maybe he could race in Williams right now in the place of Sargent, or I don't know, in some other car that is not the front runners. Like, he obviously is not good enough for a team that is in the front. And even though Aston Martin is not getting podiums right now, they're still fighting with the McLarens and the Mercedes. So he's not good enough for that. He will get destroyed again by Alonso. He will have a very little points, and it will again cost Aston Martin constructor standings, as it did last season. So all in all, he gets a 1 out of 10 out of me. Maybe it could have been a 0. I could give him a 0 if he qualified, I don't know, 18th and then DNF'd. Whatever. I gave him a 1. Let's move on. Yuki Tsunoda, I spoke about him barely when I talked about Ricciardo. He had an amazing qualifying. I have very, very good qualifying in 9th. However, for some reason, Yuki has a lot of problems in some races, and this race was one of them. It wasn't his fault that the Magnussen incident, that Magnussen overtook him illegally. That's not his fault. However, he started 9th, and he was falling behind in the race, and he's 15th, I think, because he had a 5-second penalty from an unsafe release. So the qualifying is very good. However, I expect a little bit more to give him more than a 5. If he was like 12th or 11th, I could give him a 6 or maybe even a 7. RB seems to have good quali pace, at least in Yuki's hands, and they seem to fall apart in the races, so maybe like Haas last season. Maybe not that severely, but still. And I don't know, he could do better in the races, and in the end the races are what matters the most. So I gave him a 5 out of 10. We have Max, who obviously again pole position, again won the race. He didn't lead all the laps because of the pit stops, because Norris didn't pit stop when the safety car came out. So Norris stayed out and was the leader for like 2 laps. But that's not the reason that Verstappen gets a 9. The reason that he gets a 9 and not a 10 is because it's 2 reasons. The one is I can't give him a 10 for every single win. It's not really. He is in the fastest car, as I said in the previous ratings in Bahrain. He is in the fastest car, so I can't give him a 10 for winning, just for winning in the fastest car. He was very, very good. His win was never in doubt, but he didn't destroy completely Perez as he did in Bahrain. So that's the only reason that I give him a 9 and not a 10 out of 10, because he wasn't 20 seconds ahead. I know it might seem ridiculous, but honestly, that's the only way I can rate Max right now. It's a 10 if he completely destroys everyone, and it's a 9 if he wins, but it's somewhat closer. So he gets a 9. Anyway, it doesn't really matter, let's be honest. He's going to win like almost all the races, and he's going to have the better average by far in the end, even if I give him a 9 or a 10. Last but not least, we have Zhou. He gets a 2 out of 10 because he destroyed his race with the practice crash. He crashed on practice 3. He destroyed the car, which meant that the engineers couldn't fix the car on time for him to qualify. He started 20th because of his mistake, which means that he destroyed his race, and in the race he was nowhere. They didn't pit him. It didn't work out because he didn't have the pace that Hülkenberg had, that did the same thing. And then they had the very, very long pit stop, but that's not his fault to downgrade him. What is his fault is his crashing a little bit before P3 practice 3 ended, so he destroyed his weekend completely, and then he didn't really have good pace. So I give him a 2 out of 10 because of that. So that's it for today for the driver ratings. At some point in the next days I'm going to record the F1 Fantasy video and talk about all F1 Fantasy there. Until then, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe obviously helps me, and see you in another video. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye.